Hi there, this is Darren from SimNation. Want to do a quick first round draft recap video. Of course, our draft ran on Saturday. I will have that up shortly. Once again, thank you to Frankie for hosting us on his Twitch channel. It's always great to have Frankie because Frankie, of course, creates the draft class. But it's always just good to have his perspective because his perspective is different than mine. I do hope to get more people involved in the draft for the next one. Maybe bring Gary back. We may have to put NSFW disclaimers on if we bring Skeletor back. But definitely it was a good night, lots of energy, some major draft trades happened, which kind of delayed us a little bit because I had to do math, and it's never a good idea when I have to do math. But for those of you not there, is the big trade of the night was the New York Giants stiffed armed the Miami Dolphins on getting the #1 pick. They traded away quite a bit. Some might wonder if it was too much, but I mean, in fairness, when you take Marcus Witten at #1, I don't know that there's too much. He didn't give away everything for the next 2 seasons, but he did give away quite a bit. But in what you're getting in return is probably one of the SNCFL's top quarterbacks over the last 4 years. Of course, he's out of the University of Maryland, which won 2 consecutive SNCFL championships. He steered them to it. He's got 100 arm, 92 intelligence, 90 accuracy. He's got mobility with 61 speed, 50 agility. I guess the only knock you could put on him is his QB rating, but this guy is worth a #1. He's worth almost 10 million that the Giants will be paying. The key here is, can the Giants surround him with the right talent? And that's got to be a big focus for Cable. Otherwise, when we revisit this, maybe like in a season or two, we may say that it wasn't a good pick. Um, a lot of people like the #2 pick. I'm not as high on it because I was a big Benjamin Antonio fan, but I think that Soa managed to move up to get this pick from Seattle, and he did a good job with it. Albert Shull is a good quarterback, and he is definitely worth the 10 million. The arm is not as quite as much as I would like to see. His intelligence not maybe as high as some of the other quarterbacks, but he's accurate, and he had a really strong career at UCLA. He does come out of the Stewart tree, but as you can see, he threw for over 13,000, almost 13,000 yards, 125 touchdowns. And in fairness, UCLA is not a pass-oriented attack; it is a balanced attack. So it's a good pick. Maybe not the best pick because again, I think Benjamin Antonio would have been a better pick here, but that's semantics. And of course, I have the benefit of hindsight now. Will I can say that because I now know what Benjamin Antonio looks like. The only other concern I have with this pick is the $18 million that the Dolphins now have stacked at quarterback that they're going to have to deal with because they already have a guy there who is making close to $9 million. Um, Kevin moved up to get the third pick from Buffalo. I will say that this pick generated some comments, and I don't agree with them. I think that Kevin, when you look at his roster, has a fairly good core roster, but what he's lacking in is likely a linebacker. He plays in the same division with Pittsburgh, who of course likes to run the ball, but you also have Cincinnati and Cleveland who like to run the ball. But you need to get a good linebacker in there to be able to stop that. And I think coming into this, you were either on the Pantoja bandwagon or you were on the Morgan bandwagon. I personally like Pantoja. He's not as fast as I would have liked. I thought he was faster, to be honest. But I think from a tackling and a strength perspective, he may be the better of the two linebackers. So this is a good pick in my eyes. Kevin's really trying to build that defense up to try to stop Pittsburgh from just running the ball at him constantly, and this is a solid pick towards that. So I like this pick, I guess would be the easiest way to say it. I don't like this next pick. I like, so you're going to hear me say this a lot tonight. I like the person, I hate the pick. I hate this pick. I can't strongly say enough how much I hate this pick. I think I gave it a D in Slack. I really give it an F. It is a horrible pick for Kansas City, and the reason I say that is you have Sean Sparks, and you have Benjamin Antonio. I'm gonna get that wrong most of the night. Benjamin Antonio on the board. You need a quarterback. You don't need a fucking wide receiver. Now, Bison is not a bad wide receiver, and I got to be careful with this because Bison had a very productive career at Michigan. Almost 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 89 speed, 82 hands. Not great. 78 agility, not great again. Not a good pick because you don't need a wide receiver. You need a guy who can actually get the ball to the wide receiver. So Bison in himself is probably a mid-round pick, and if you had picked him in the middle rounds, I would give you an A. In the early rounds, probably giving you a B. Picking him when you need a quarterback, I'm giving you an F. So I'm gonna move on from that before I have a stroke or something like that. I like the pick of Yazzie. Again, this is gonna be one of those. Well, I like the pick. I love I love the player. Hate the pick. Yazzie is a great defensive tackle, probably one of the best in this class. His strength and his agility alone, you don't see that with that speed and that tackling very often in a defensive tackle. He is absolutely a game changer. He's worth $8 million. I could have seen him going in the first 3 picks. And I don't think that there would have been any issue there if he had been picked in the first 3. The problem is Atlanta doesn't need a defensive tackle. They need a quarterback. And yet again, you skipped over 2 really good quarterbacks to take a defensive tackle when you're pretty much already stacked there to begin with. So, yeah, the NFC South opponents are going to be running skilled away from Yazzie, but they're not going to be really worried about the Falcons because the Falcons aren't going to be able to put points on the board. This next one, it's like 3 in a row, actually. I hate the fact that Tampa Bay picked Luis Parker. Parker is without a doubt one of the top 2 players in this draft. He's the only guy I could have seen going at number 1 other than Whitten. Or, in fairness, Benjamin Antonio, but none of us really knew that back then. Parker, I've written a lot about Parker. He is just speed, strength, size, tackling. This guy does everything. He is as close to Ronnie Lott as you're going to find. He just is a phenomenal player. But again, with Tampa Bay's needs being what they are, and the fact that they already kind of have some people that they could fit in here, it just doesn't make sense to draft him. I actually wish he would have slid 1 or slid 2 because then he would have slid to a team that I think actually could have used him. I'm not even sure Parker's going to start on the Buccaneers, which is going to just be a shame. So if you're out there and you're wanting to join this league, get Tampa Bay. You're going to get one of the best strong safeties in a long time. I like this pick from Cleveland. Some people have brought up the fact that they still have Angel Watson, who's relatively young in his career, but let's be honest, Angel Watson really hasn't done anything. So bringing in Sean Sparks, who almost upset Oklahoma State, did upset Louisiana Monroe as a senior within the SNCFL. He's got all the great intangibles. I mean, you look at his arm, it's 89. He's smart. He's got good accuracy. There's just a lot to like about Sean Sparks, and he's a clutch QB. So I like this pick. I do think that this is one Will Bio did a really good job with this pick. So kudos to Bio. This is a really good pick. The next pick with Udo from Washington for Daryl Bowman. I like this pick too. This is a really solid pick from Udo. He needed to bring in a strong safety. I think he probably got the most explosive safety that was on the board. And this is the type of guy who's going to make you think twice about coming across the middle on him because he's just going to light you up. So you can draw comparisons to any number of strong safeties. All of them probably would be correct. The only knock on him is his speed, but frankly, with that agility and the fact that he plays strong safety, he's going to have a really good career. It's a great pick, Udo. Congrats. You got yourself a real good baller, though. Miami, people are going back and forth on this one. I don't have a problem with it because, again, fog of war being what it is, we don't know whether free safety wise the other guy was better or not. But I like Gagnon at this pick for Miami. They do need a free safety, and it helps fulfills their need. They're in a division with New York and New England. New York, of course, has just those killer wide receivers that are just nothing but speed. And in this pick, they get a fast, rangy, and skillful safety who should be able to help them slow those guys down. So it's a solid pick. I did have Gagnon in my top 10. I do think that there was a better free safety out there, but you can't argue Gagnon. Gagnon's a good pick. The next pick, meh. I feel meh about this one. This pick isn't as good for me. He has a definite need for a cornerback, but he needs a fast one. Blair's not a fast cornerback by any measure of the stick. And some of you are probably saying, like, he has 87 speed. You're going against the Jets, who have wide receivers who are anywhere from 92 to 95. This guy's not going to keep up with them. Now, he'll get a good first step on them, and maybe that's the play, though, and he'll probably get some interceptions. But for 6.9 million, I think that there was a better choice out there than him. So I don't love this pick as much. Tennessee, I like this pick. This is a solid pick. Tennessee doesn't have many holes. And getting Robert Frederick, who many would argue is one of the better defensive tackles, especially from the nose tackle slot. I mean, he had 17 sacks in college at Washington, which is the Pac-12. He's just a solid pick, and it's not sexy by any measure of the stick, but you're getting a strong, agile, and fast guy at defensive tackle who is really going to help Tennessee in the AFC. The next one, it kind of fits back into that thing of I hate to pick, but I like the player. So I'm a big fan of Gregory Frank. Um, I really think that going to any other team, I would have given this an A. But Seattle has 6 running backs, almost $18 million invested in those running backs. Throwing another 6.3, granted it's Frank, right? It's just a horrible pick because they don't need a running back. They had so many needs in so many other areas that just making this pick was just bad. And it's bad for Frank because he's not going to be able to see the field anytime soon. And that's a real shame considering that he is very much similar to Michael Lackey, who is the running back from Pittsburgh who ran for over 2,000 yards last season. So that's just kind of that's a little bit of a painful one. Up next is Don Wheatley for LA. I like this pick. They needed help on the interior line. They filled this. As you can see, he's fast. He's a good tackler. He's strong. His agility is not quite where you need it, but I mean, you can't look past this. For defensive tackle, where he's being picked at pick 20, it's a solid pick. I think that they did a good job though. So congrats. Um, I skipped. I meant to say Ivan Peak. So when we get here, I'll just skip them. Ivan Peak is up next. He was the top rated guard in the class, frankly. I don't necessarily like this pick, honestly. Mostly because I think what the Chargers need is a more pass blocker. Peak is not a pass blocker. And I think that they could have went strong safety here. Um, this is a kind of I'm in the middle of it. I get why they picked him. He is the best guard on the board. But again, there was a better pass blocking guard out there, or you could have went with strong safety. And there were a couple pretty good options out there as well. Love this pick from Buffalo. I can't speak enough. To get this guy at 14 is just amazing. He is the second best quarterback in the class. Some people might argue he is the best. But just Buffalo's got themselves a really good quarterback. As long as they surround him with the right guys, this guy's going to have a really good career. He's a day one starter, getting him for $5.8 million. That's a major win for them. I like this next pick too from Cincinnati. He is arguably the fastest linebacker in the class. You could make the argument that he's the best linebacker in the class. I think Pantoja is a little bit better than him, but you can't negate 88 speed. It's unreal. And he's a thumper to boot coming out of the Big Ten. So you know this guy can ball. So I like this pick. I hate it from a Pittsburgh perspective because you got a guy who can actually compete against most safeties and cornerbacks speed-wise who hits better than they do and will be able to push some linemen or side to get at the quarterback. So just a great pick from Cincinnati. Up next, Chicago. I like David Whatley a lot. I think this was he's a great player. He's definitely a game changer. I mean, 83 speed, 81 strength. You don't find that very often in a defensive end in the WWPF. So he would make almost any team happy except for Chicago. Chicago's already invested $14 million in two defensive ends who are arguably as good. So it would have made more sense to try to go tight end or tackle here. So I love the player, hate the pick. David Allard is up next with Detroit. I got to be careful here because Allard's a Maryland person and I'm a little biased though. But the Lions needed a quarterback, but I think they'll be able to get one in day two. Given that the top four are already off the board, I do like this pick. They get a fast, tall, strong wide receiver who will complement Khan, or even Khan will complement him. He's a day one starter. It's a good pick, and that's traditionally what you want to see. Denver made a really solid pick. I really like this pick with Marty McCune. Um, in my eyes, he probably was the best defensive end in the draft. So they're closing those holes. They're getting someone who can put pressure on Peter in Oakland. And he's going to be a pain in Oakland's side for quite some time. So this is a great pick, Prince. Good job. Up next is Nathan Ford. I like this pick a lot. One of the things that Stewart's been missing in San Francisco is a game-changing running back. This guy's a game changer. 98 speed. You're not going to find many running backs that fast. Yeah, his agility's not great. He's a straight line runner, but again, he can catch the ball out of the backfield with that 77 hands. This is just a really good pick, and it's one of those picks that could propel San Francisco into the Super Bowl. I'll just say that outright. I'm going to skip over Don Wheatley because I already talked about him by mistake. Evan Gale, I like this pick. But I have I have some issues with the pick, but I think again, the 86 speed is just amazing. I would have probably have went with someone different for this pick, but Skelter does need defensive ends. And now they have two speedsters on both sides, so it's a solid pick, especially with the 86 speed. He's just going to be a nightmare in the NFC. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Where were we? Jeffrey Barham. I don't like this pick. I like Jeffrey Barham. I just don't like the pick. First of all, I think Jeffrey Barham is a second round pick. I don't think he's a first rounder. Second of all, they don't need a quarterback. They need help on their line and secondary. This is a major reach. It's a pure F for me on this one. It's a shame because Barham is a really good quarterback. He deserves a better team than this. Up next, Michael Stern. New England has very few holes, so it's going to be easy to pick apart Shark for this. It's not a sexy pick, but it's a solid pick for him. He definitely needs help on the defensive line to keep DP and the Jets in check. Also deal with some of the rising teams with Buffalo and Miami. So it definitely helps him show up that defense. And I think it's a good solid pick, especially later in the round. Blake DeVito's up next. I really like Blake DeVito. He's one of my favorite tackles. I thought about trying to move up to get him actually. But again, they have 6 tackles on the roster. Moving up to grab him, even though he is the best one on the roster, just doesn't make sense when you have so many other holes on your roster. Now, at least this one's serviceable because he will start. But again, when you have 6 tackles, you might want to think about a different position. This next one, I don't know what Peter's up to. Peter's up to something, and I just don't see it. Arsenal is a good, strong safety. He was high up on my board. 89 speed is really solid for a strong safety. He's a good hitter. He's got good hands. His agility's a little suspect, but I think it's a reach, especially given what he did in a few picks from now. I think that he went after him, realized that this wasn't the guy for him, and went after the other guy. And it just felt like he was trying to really take the whole orange market by force by drafting the strong safeties. So I don't like this. I think he's already put him up for on the trading block. So not one of the better picks from Peter. It's one of the few times I'll question his pick because this one I'm struggling with it. I do like Rudolph Matthews. I think he's a very, very solid defensive tackle. Green Bay has a couple holes to fill on defense. Matthews will definitely fill those. He feels like a bull rusher to me, which means that interior linemen are just going to cringe and be afraid of getting thrown. So it's a solid pick, especially when we're talking picking at number 26. 27, KINSEY. So let me start this by saying I like KINSEY. KINSEY's a guy I avoided at Maryland. I would actually throw the ball away from him because he would just pick everything off in front of him. I mean, he had 12 interceptions, and then even worse, a third of the time he would take it back for a touchdown. So he's just someone you avoided in the collegiate ranks. I like the player a lot. I'm not so sure I like this pick for Dallas. Anderson, I get it, is in the final year of his contract, but they also have $10 million invested in McCrary for another 2 seasons. I think a linebacker or cornerback would have been here a better pick, but again, Templar knows what he's doing, so we can trust that he knows what he's doing. I do like Vincent Rash a lot. He's one of my favorites, actually. I kept hoping he would drop all the way to the end, and I intended to get him. This is a good pick for the Colts, who need to get more rush and start filling those rushing lanes. I just He's arguably one of the best defensive tackles out there. 90 strength is just amazing with 74 speed. So good solid pick for Rick at Indianapolis. That's going to show some benefits. I alluded to this. So to me, Kendall was the one outside of Parker was the highest, and Bowman was the best overall strong safety. I would have gotten picking Kendall too earlier rather than Arsenal, and I liked this pick actually. Although I still don't think it's a position of need for Peter, but again, Peter knows his roster best and what he's going to do. It's just this seems like more of a solid pick than the one that he made a couple picks earlier. Marvin Cornell with Cleveland. Um, I'm not as big of a fan of this pick from a need because they have Fonseca and Locklear at guard. And they needed to get some help at defensive tackle, wide receiver, and strong safety. I get it. It seems like Peter just took all the strong safeties off the board. But I think that while Cornett is a good guard for Cleveland because Bio does run the ball, I think that he could have still gotten a good run blocking guard in the second round and maybe use this a little bit differently. But in fairness, when you start picking the slate, it's a little harder. Um, so on to the runner-up, Invisible Witness, with Carolina. Um, I mean, he's got Lozano and Ricks. They're both young and maybe better, but I mean, you could move Wesley inside and he's going to be a menace as a defensive tackle. Or you could play him inside and he's a menace and rotate him. So it's not a horrible pick. It's not a great pick, but it's a solid B pick. Wesley's just good enough that he will make Carolina better. And one of the things I think Carolina may have struggled a little bit, and bear in mind, Tate is near the end of his career on the defensive line, is getting the right rotation in to be able to compete in the Super Bowl. And there's a strong chance Carolina's back in the championship game again this year, and having that rotation in a player like Wesley may help them quite a bit. I hate talking about myself, so this next one's going to be a little hard for me with Timothy Dill. Um, Pittsburgh needed a wide receiver that was fast. They had to replace Roush and Cortez. I like this pick just because he's fast, he's got good hands, he's highly agile. He fits a lot of the bill of what Pittsburgh's looking for in a wide receiver. Timothy Dill was probably number 2 on my chart behind Allard, so it's a good pickup for Pittsburgh. He doesn't really play like a 6'3", though, because he's not as strong as he should be, but this is a solid pick for the last pick in the draft. So that's kind of what I thought. Let me know your thoughts. I'll be doing a final draft video when we complete. But tonight the second round runs, and then we complete the second round, and then we'll do the third round first half tomorrow, and then the third round second half the day after, which will be Wednesday. And we'll just keep chugging along. So if you want to join this league, we're in the middle of the draft. It's a perfect time to join. There are a lot of good teams still open, and hope to see you there. Thank you for your time tonight.